Good morning. My father's long been interested in orchids. He's got a lot of orchids in his greenhouse. He grows them and divides them, and he's given us a lot. And Susan's mainly looked after them. But just recently I've been learning how to look after them more and divide them and enjoy the colours and the beauty and the diversity of these amazing plants. Let me just show you a couple. This little one, I don't know what it's called. It's very tiny, but look at the intricacy, the beautiful little flower, the delicate shapes around it, the dots and the pink in the middle and the yellow, and just beautiful. A stunning little orchid. This is the latest orchid he gave us this week. Beautiful. Just look at the complexity of it. The long. It's a much bigger orchid. But right in the middle there is this beautiful little flower, or part of the flower, I don't know. I'm a bit ignorant of it, but white and yellow, just intricate design and colours. It's beautiful. And then there's this fella over here. There's this fella here. We also got this one this week. It's not just orchids. It's plants of all shapes and colours. Yeah, on our walk this morning, Nico and I looked out, and along the grass there were wildflowers, yellows, purples, and in the gardens along the way there were gum blossoms and flowers, purples and pinks and blues and yellows and whites and reds and oranges, and all the foliage, the greens and the greys and the reds and the yellows. The trees in the bush, the gum trees are white and grey and brown and red, and the diversity of colour and beauty is just stunning. We live in a world of abundance of colour and shape and diversity and size, of beauty. It's everywhere around us. But I wonder if we actually see it. I wonder if we recognise the abundance in which we live. The sounds of the cockatoos and the birds, so many different sounds, so many different squawks and songs and cries. Again, the diversity of sound, the abundance of sound and colour and timbre and beauty. And yet we live in a world which is often a world of scarcity. The news we hear is about conflict and about starvation, about fires and floods and violence. Elections are won and governments are re-elected, elected on propagating news of scarcity. There's not enough room in this land for refugees, people who have needs. There's not enough money to go around. We can't afford these rapid antigen tests to give them out to people. We can't afford this, we can't afford that. I mean, there's plenty of money to buy submarines, $90 billion. Will they even be effective by the time we get them? But we live in a world that's we're often told is a world of scarcity. You know, we don't look handsome enough or beautiful enough or strong enough, or our career's not quite good enough, or we don't have enough money saved away in superannuation or savings, or we don't earn enough, or our latest computer's not fast enough or good enough, or won't do what it should be able to do, and then the phone we've got is a couple of years old and out of date, and so we need a new one, and nothing's good enough or enough. We live in a world where we're told it's scarce, and yet all around us is amazing beauty and diversity. When I walk through the bush, I'm just stunned by the beauty, the sun filtering through the trees in the morning. It's lovely in spring and autumn, the coolness of the morning and the warmth of the sunshine. In these hot summer days it's very humid and muggy, but there's still a beauty, a rich beauty, and the shade that's abundant under those trees. This week I've been wrestling with a story from John's story of Jesus. He begins his story with this, it's called the prologue, the introduction if you like. This amazing account of the Word, the eternal Word that was with God and was God, through whom all things are made. This Word becomes flesh and dwells among us. And then he goes on and Jesus is baptised by John and he calls disciples to follow him. That's the opening. The light of the world has come and is here. And then in the second chapter it begins on the third day, which the ancient readers would immediately understand. This is a story to be read in the light of resurrection on the third day. And it's a story of a wedding, a great, beautiful celebration, a celebration of joy and wonder and of love and of union of two families. In the ancient world, those celebrations, as in some cultures still today, could go on for days. And a host family were expected to provide food and wine and drink and for that whole time. And in a system of shame and honour, to not have enough, to run out, was shameful. So this wedding in Cana in Galilee, Jesus and his disciples and his mother are invited. And his mother only appears in the story of John twice, right here at the beginning and then right at the end on the cross, with the cross. And she says to him, "Son, they've run out of wine." And I guess that's a line for our world, isn't it? The word, the phrase, the scarcity. There's not enough. It's run out. And Jesus has this to and fro with his mother. What's that to me? It's not my problem. My time's not yet come. This strange interaction. She ignores it, pushes it aside and says to the servants, "Do anything he tells you. Do whatever he tells you." And along the wall there's 6 stone jars, huge stone jars. We're told they're jars for the waters of purification. The water of purification was to purify someone. We're constantly reminded that we're unclean before God. We're tainted, we're sinful, we're dirty, we're not good enough. And so these waters of purification were constantly there to purify people for worship, so they could come before God. They're empty. And so Jesus says to them, "Well, fill up the jars." We're told that the jars hold 20 or 30 gallons each, somewhere 150, maybe 180 gallons of water in these 6 jars. And so they go off to wherever they go, the spring, the river, wherever it is, and they get the water and they lug it backwards and forth and fill these 6 jars. And it's interesting, it's 6 jars. 6 in John's story, it's these symbols, numbers and other things are really important. 6 is a number of, it's an incomplete number because God created in 7 days. 6 days of creation and the 7th day was the day of completion, the day of rest. Well, this is only the 6th day, it's incomplete, it isn't finished. That's what the 6 is about. These jars, pure water for purification, this huge amount of water. We're told in some of the Jewish writings that a glass of water is enough to purify 100 people. 180 gallons is enough to purify the world. And yet it's still not enough. Because in this mode of thinking, this traditional mode of thinking, we're never good enough. We're never good enough for God's love, for God's grace. We're never good enough, and we always need to be purified because we're imperfect. And Jesus says to them, "Now take some of the water to the chief steward." And he drinks and he goes to the bridegroom and says, "What have you done here? Most people have the best wine at the beginning, and then when people have had too much to drink, they bring on the poor stuff. You've left the best for last." And not only is it the best wine, there's 180 gallons of stuff. 900 litres of wine. The best wine. This story is a story about abundance. The waters of purification, there's enough water to purify the world, but there's never enough water to purify the world. If we live in this mode of thinking, this traditional way, where our belief systems, our rituals, our whatever says that we're never good enough and God never loves us enough and we've got to do this, we've got to do that, we've got to obey the law. The law is rigid and defined, and against the law we'll never make it. And Jesus said, do you want to live? Do you want to live in this way? Do you want to live in a way that you're never good enough, you never make it? The law is always there to tell you how bad you are, how you fail. Or do you want to live in this way that truly is the way of God? A way of faith that is about abundance. The abundance of God. It's joyful, it's celebratory. It is the best wine. There's 900 litres of it. If you want to party and live joyfully in abundance, or you want to live in scarcity. Too much faith and too much religion is about scarcity. It's about telling people that you're not good enough. It's about telling people you can't be included because you're like this or you're like that or you think this or you do that or something else. It's not Jesus. Jesus says God's love is abundant. It's all around you. Have a look at the colours of the flowers. Have a look at the clouds and the sky, the diversity, the beauty. The sun shines day in, day out. The rain that pours. The grasses that are green. The trees. The animals. The people. The diversity. The beauty. The richness that's built into everything. There is enough. There is enough beauty and enough wonder and enough love in this world for everyone. But not if we hoard it away or believe there's not enough. But more than that, if we're stuck in belief systems, whether they're religious ones or political or ideological or whatever, belief systems that contain us and control us, or that we can control, it's never enough. And we'll never be good enough. And Jesus says that's not the way of God. God is love. And he invites us into this way of life and love. He'll go on, or John will go on in this story to say, have Jesus say, I am the way, the truth and life. Anyone who wants to come into God and live in God comes through me and my way. This way of love, this way of grace, this way of abundance, this way of generosity and sharing. And if you want to live in that way, be generous. Be abundantly generous and sharing and loving of other people. You can never be too kind. You can never be too gracious. You can never be too gentle. You can never be too inclusive in this world. Because that's what God is. And God invites us into this journey, into this life, celebration, joy and wonder. In the midst of the joy and the pain, the great moments and the hard moments, God is with us. And there is abundant love for everyone.